I'm gonna be honest, I was supposed to start recording this video like 2 hours ago, and then I started watching my own YouTube videos for like 2 hours. I'm the best YouTuber ever. I'm hilarious. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. If this isn't a welcome back, let me introduce myself. My name's Chris. I know how to read. Allegedly. So in this video, we're going to be talking about men and their reading habits, kind of in general, but we're going to primarily be talking about this article from the New York Times. It's an opinion piece called "The Disappearance of Literary Men Should Worry Everyone" by David J. Morris. And I actually made a whole video on this subject a little bit ago. So I was thinking we could read this article together, see what Morris kind of talks about, and see if there's any things that we can relate back to my previous video. For those of y'all that have been with the channel for a while, first of all, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the love and support on all my videos. But the video that I'm talking about specifically is let's talk about why men don't read, which I released about 2 months ago, which is crazy. It feels like way longer than that. But that video was essentially like 2 videos in one, really. And I think that's what helped it be one of my like most popular videos. Again, thank you so much for watching. It was a male booktuber tag, and it was also kind of an analysis on why men aren't really in the literary space in kind of modern America. And one of the main reasons that I wanted to make that video was because I had noticed that a lot of the booktube, book talk, whatever you want to call it, content that I was being served was primarily women. And don't get me wrong, I love women. I was raised by my mom and my older sister. I love women. Do y'all remember Jessica Alba in the first Fantastic Four movie? Also in the second one, but primarily the first Fantastic Four movie? I love women. But I noticed that in literature, in this space, there was a lack of male voices. And one of the points that stuck with me, because like I was spitting in that video, if you ain't seen it, go watch it. It's awesome. One of the points I made in that video was that books are quite literally about everything written by everybody, right? So I feel like we should have everybody talking about all of these books. And of course, there's nothing wrong with primarily white women talking about these books, but there should just be more voices in the room, more voices discussing these books. And another point I made in that video, men are everywhere else. So if book-related subjects are the thing we're a little outnumbered in, I'm good. We'll take it, you know? Off rip already, over the past 2 decades, literary fiction has become largely a female pursuit. I'll see if I have the picture somewhere. I saved some stats right here from my previous video. The percentage of boys claiming to not like reading at all in this study is 11.64%, while that of girls is 3.47%. And for those who affirmed that they like reading a lot, the difference is even greater, 6.47% of boys compared to 25.48% of girls. Novels are increasingly written by women and read by women. In 2004, about half the authors on the New York Times fiction bestseller list were women and about half men. This year, the list looks to be more than 3/4 women. According to multiple reports, women now account for about 80% of fiction sales. And I would love to see kind of more research on that, because I know that romantasy and romance books have popped off in recent years. I'm assuming that's where some of that 80% of fiction sales is coming from. But I said in my previous video, and I'll say it now, I think more people reading is the goal. Like, if more people are reading, whether they're reading hockey romances or Brandon Sanderson, like, I think the fact that more people are reading is good enough. Morris goes on to talk about their creative writing program and about how 60% of the applications come from women, and how male underrepresentation is an uncomfortable topic in a literary landscape or world, otherwise highly attuned to such imbalances. Again, going back to the idea that books in and of themselves are incredibly diverse, so the community surrounding them is going to be kind of incredibly diverse by default. I'm reading this article for the first time with y'all, and I really appreciate this paragraph right here. To be clear, I welcome the end of male dominance in literature. Men ruled the roost for far too long, too often at the expense of great women writers who ought to have been read instead. I also don't think that men deserve to be better represented in literary fiction. They don't suffer from the same kind of prejudice that women have long endured. Again, if reading books is the place where men have to take an L, we'll take it gladly. Like, y'all can have this one. Furthermore, young men should be reading Sally Rooney and Elena Ferrante. Male readers don't need to be paired with male writers. And I fully agree with that statement. In recent decades, young men have regressed educationally, emotionally, and culturally. Among women matriculating at 4-year public colleges, about half will graduate 4 years later. For men, the rate is under 40%. This disparity surely translates to a drop-off in the number of novels young men read as they descend deeper into video games and pornography. I don't know about all that. I don't know if the disparity surely translates to a drop-off in the number of novels young men read. But I did read a great article on The Atlantic called "The Elite College Students Who Can't Read Books." I believe his name is Jared Henderson. I could be remembering that incorrectly. He made a great video about this article. Essentially, this video and this article focus on the true fact that kids in colleges all over the country are struggling to read, whether it's for a class, whether it's to read articles. Right here, it says the chair of Georgetown, that's a great school, his English department told me that his students have trouble staying focused even on a sonnet. That thing's like this big. The author goes on to talk about politics as well, about how young men who still exhibit curiosity about the world too often seek intellectual stimulation through figures of the manosphere, such as Andrew Tate and Joe Rogan. And I fully agree with the author right here. They say these young men need better stories, and they need to see themselves as belonging to the world of storytelling. I've said it in a lot of videos on this channel that one of the main reasons I started making videos was because I didn't see a me out there on BookTube. And I think it's incredibly important, whether it's something as small scale as this YouTube channel, or whether you're like the greatest athlete ever at your sport. Like, I think it's important to have figures that marginalized young men and women truly can look up to and see themselves in. Novels do many things. They entertain, inspire, puzzle, hypnotize. But reading fiction is also an excellent way to improve one's emotional IQ. Novels help us form our identities and understand our lives. Like many other bookish Gen Xers, I cannot conceive of my formative years without the Douglas Copeland novel that gave our generation its name. This is why, this is baller of a line. This is why we need a more inclusive literary culture, one that will bring young men in from the cold. And I don't want to talk about politics too much on this channel because I recognize that people look towards their favorite creators and YouTube and their favorite like safe spaces as a way to like escape from a bunch of stuff that's going on like outside, right? But in case you couldn't tell by the everything about me, I'm about as far left politically as you can go. Let's get that out there. So I recognize where this author is coming from, in saying that we need to bring young men in from the cold, because men like me, my age, younger than me, even young women are kind of forced into these spaces, whether by their own devices, consciously or subconsciously. They are forced into these spaces where even the smallest opinion that they have is pushed to the immediate extreme, and they latch on to these spaces because they are marginalized. They have nowhere else to go. And I'm not trying to make excuses for these people, right? Like, being hateful is being hateful, like full stop, period, end of story. But a part of me also empathizes with these people, that they are so marginalized that they have no other spaces, that the only space they can find any sort of community is quite possibly the worst spaces on the planet. And I think for me, like, I've made a lot of friends through my love of basketball. I've made a lot of friends through my love of video games. I've made a lot of friends through my love of reading, through my love of books. And a lot of people don't like basketball, and a lot of people don't have the time or money to play video games. But in an age where it is easier to do things than it is to not do things, or it's easier to find ebooks or physical books or however you want to read, reading is like one of those few rare communities that is so diverse and so open that men, women, NBs, people from all over the world, from all different types of interests and everything in between, can find common ground, whether it's an artist or a book or a genre that they love. And I like kind of like the messaging and the imagery of this sentence, like a more inclusive literary culture, one that will bring young men in from the cold, because these young men and young women too, they might have parkas, they might have jackets, they might have layers of clothing that might keep them at least a little warm from the cold, but they're still in harsh weather. They're still in the cold. And if a book or a library or a Kindle can bring them in from that cold, like, there's no reason they should have to hurt them. Oh, I'd cook if I can get this right. These young men might think they're good, right? They got jackets, they got parkas, they got layers, they got gloves. They might think they're doing good in the cold, but completely kind of negating the fact that they don't have to be in the cold in the first place. And if books and reading and literature is a way to get them out of the cold, to make them get rid of all those layers so they don't have to be stuffed up all the time, That's perfect. The author goes on to say, I am not saying that we should declare progress for women writers complete and now focus solely on men. The question for me is, what will become of literature and indeed society if men are no longer involved in reading and writing? The fortunes of men and women are intertwined. And this line right here about the fortunes of men and women being intertwined reminds me of the first book I read last year in 2024, which was Will to Change by Bell Hooks, and it's about men, love, and masculinity. And in that book, she talks about how feminism, in order to get feminism to the point where it needs to be, men need to be a part of that. Like, the lives of men and women are intertwined, and one cannot do without the other. No way! I'm cooking! I did not realize that Bell Hooks was mentioned in this article. I'm him. I'm an ally. The author talks about it right here. Here I am reminded of something that the feminist scholar Bell Hooks once wrote. I think this is from the opening chapters of Will to Change. There remains a small strain of feminist thinkers who feel strongly that they have given all they want to give to men. They are concerned solely with improving the collective welfare of women. Yet life has shown me that any time a single male dares to transgress patriarchal boundaries, something I am convinced literature enables men to do, the lives of women, men, and children are fundamentally changed for the better. And that's the end of the article. That's crazy. I didn't know that that was going to be mentioned. That's awesome. Okay, weird moment because my phone's about to run out of battery and I need to finish this video. One of the things I love about reading and about reading more and about reading kind of various articles and genres and everything in between is that I can make connections like that. And your boy's not a writer, don't get me wrong, but this is such a cool moment that I was reading something and I was like, oh, that reminds me of a book I read a little bit ago, and then it's brought up in the article. That's awesome. But I wanted to use this video and this article by David J. Morris to kind of reiterate the fact that I love people talking about the things they love. One of my favorite things is when one of my friends goes on a rant on something they're interested in, and I could just sit there and listen and be like, you're so cool. I love that you love something so interesting. And books can be that thing for a lot of people, right? Like right now, women are dominating books. You walk into any Barnes & Noble, there's 14 romantic fantasy sections, right? And I'm not saying get rid of any of those sections, right? But after reading this article and rewatching my old video and kind of doing some more thinking about it, I really do think that reading and literature of any genre, of any book, can help bridge the gap for a lot of people. Reading can help people connect, right? And whether you're like some ostracized young adult in the middle of nowhere, Texas, or whether you're like a very popular young woman in New York working in finance, you know, two types of people, two groups of people that would have never interacted before can interact over a book, over an author, but kind of generally over their love of reading and literature. This video kind of primarily started out talking about men and reading and the lack thereof, right? But I think if we really want to take literature to kind of transcend sex or gender or everything in between, we really need to start having kind of more thought-provoking, kind of open discussions that we might agree or disagree with. And that kind of starts with a general dismantling of my worldview, of your worldview, of everybody else's worldview, and then like building it back up with this new, more inclusive, kind of more welcoming foundation that literature can help us get to. As someone who may or may not know how to read, I really love reading and literature just based on the fact that it is an incredibly inclusive, welcoming environment, right? Anybody can read and pick up a book and enjoy it and talk to others about it, right? But if we want more young men, if we want more young people in general to read books, to be a part of this community, it starts with us. Like, we have to be the ones to rewrite the story. I want to thank y'all for watching this video. Like I said, my previous video about this topic was one of my favorite videos I've ever made and still is. And if you haven't seen that, something should have popped up a while ago that you guys could have clicked to watch it, but I also have it linked down below just so you guys can have a refresher. This is like required reading type of thing. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said, I want to build an inclusive community kind of about reading and about literature, and that begins with me making videos that y'all actually want to like and comment on and subscribe to see more. Let me leave y'all with like a little question that y'all can leave a comment to. Oh, okay, how about this? We've been talking about building a community, right? That's been a topic in this video and my previous one. If y'all had to start a book club with a book, what would that be? What book would y'all use to start a book club that you think a lot of people might enjoy, that might be out there for some, but that you think there would be good discussion around? For me, I'm gonna go with my favorite book of all time, Sapiens. I think anybody and everybody would love that book, but let me know down below what comment y'all would start a book club with, and also just like any general vibes, any general comments, questions, concerns that you have about kind of the whole topic of men reading that we talked about in this video. Again, I want to thank y'all for making it to this point. Thank you for all the love and support y'all have given me on previous videos, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.